Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast helping your family cruise a little smarter. But today we are not talking DCL. But before we even get into it, I'd like to welcome back to the show our wonderful co-host down in Los Angeles. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing pretty good. We're talking about the thing that caused you and I to meet each other.
In fact,
we wouldn't know each other if it were not for Run Disney.
And I'm not going to be an apologist at all. I mean, I think when we started this podcast, Christy and I, we said that, DCL is going to be our home port, but we will talk about other facets of traveling in the Disney community. And I think this is a topic that really just doesn't get covered enough on podcasts. I know our guest today, our Run Disney expert, does an amazing job over on his YouTube channel, but we don't really see a lot of podcasts talking about Run Disney. So I love talking about it. We love the product.
Yeah, no need to apologize. It's also not for everybody, but the thing I like about Run Disney is that it's the most for everybody running event. Like, there are a lot of really competitive running events that are just not even anywhere in my wheelhouse. But Run Disney, I feel like, I could hurt myself and have to walk the entire time, and that would be fine. Or I could just not be in a place where I'm able to train as hard and have to adjust my pace, and that would be fine too. But there are other races where just that isn't an option, and they don't really embrace all different levels. So, I would say Run Disney is as close as you can get as being accessible to most people.
Definitely. Well, before we jump into the topic today, we got to bring our guest on, Run Disney expert, all the way from Mouse Gen over on YouTube. How you doing today, Blake?
Doing good. Happy to be here. Excited to be able to talk about in-person races returning.
Why don't you just go over it? So Run Disney just made a huge announcement. I know that you knew it was coming at some point. I don't think anybody expected it to be as quick, but what did they announce?
Yeah, so they announced that all in-person races are returning. We kind of went back and forth on whether we thought Marathon would be the first one or it was a Princess, but they really shocked us and decided that Wine and Dine was going to be ran in person this year. So we have Wine and Dine Marathon weekend, Princess half weekend, and then the new rethemed, what used to be Star Wars, is now the Run Disney Springtime Surprise Weekend, which we don't know what's going on with that.
Oh my gosh. The Run Disney Springtime Surprise is such a confusing and also makes sense product. On the one hand, it's confusing because it's Run Disney hasn't really done a thing where it's no consistent theming. It's whatever we want, except for, I guess, their summer virtual series, which is different each summer. But with that one, I feel like the reason they're doing it is because they realized if you choose something like Marvel or Star Wars, which has a huge audience, it's still not a strong enough audience to consistently draw the crowds the way that Princess and Disney characters are.
Definitely. So starting with Wine and Dine, I guess, kind of surprising that was going to happen so fast. And I think part of that is, as we talked about it with some different people in the Disney community, is the fact that there really isn't a lot of hotels available for that weekend.
Yeah, that was a tough weekend to book for and remains a tough weekend to book for. If you don't have a room already, there's not a lot of options. I pulled up just kind of perusing again what that full weekend has available. And I think it was 1 2-bedroom suite somewhere and another deluxe resort. It was 1 room each there. Not a lot of options, especially if you're trying to be on a budget there.
What are the dates for Wine and Dine? Why don't we start there?
The dates for Wine and Dine are November 4th through November 7th. This is the usual predicted weekend for Wine and Dine. So nothing really big changed there. They're offering the same races, 5K, 10K, half challenge. Something that is new this year is all the races do have virtual options for every weekend. So if you are someone that cannot always get out to the races or may not be yet comfortable going to an in-person race that may be drawing large crowds, this is another great option and an option that people have been asking for a while now.
Yeah, I see it staying forever, honestly, because it's literally just money for Run Disney. They are selling these medals at way more than it costs for them to produce them and t-shirts. So if they want to just continue with that virtual option forever, I think they'll be able to. The in-person is limited by capacity and space. So those sell out not because they can't produce enough medals, but because they literally just can't fit that many bodies in a corral.
I see him kind of continuing, as you guys said, as far as the virtual goes, for all those different reasons. Before we talk about, registering for this one, like, I know this is yours and Katie's one of your favorite races to run. Can you kind of explain why that is? And do they have the after hours party still this year?
Yeah. So what you alluded to, probably one of the best things about this race weekend specifically is you get the post-race party. So this happens usually that Sunday night after the half marathon. So if you run the challenge or the half marathon, you actually get a ticket included. And if not, you can buy a ticket for $89. But this is basically just like an after hours party in Epcot just for people who ran the races and guests that bought tickets to it. And it's pretty cool. It usually takes place during the end of Food and Wine, and they have all the booths. And they've done like exclusive merchandise and stuff for the parties as well.
I think that's one of the reasons why we would love to do that, is just for that after hours party. I mean, I think that, a Run Disney race is amazing, the race itself. And then it's always fun to kind of, meet up with people afterwards at the little celebration. You can get your picture taken with the different characters that represent that race. But the ability to maybe go back, clean up, grab a snack, and then hit that party with people and friends in the evening just makes this race kind of really stand out for us. We hope to do it sometime soon.
I definitely think that we would want to do the Wine and Dine eventually. I will say my number one deciding factor in what race to choose is my distaste for Florida weather. And if I could avoid going to Florida during a 8-month period, I would, because it's just so hot. I think that it starts to cool down by November, but it's still not going to be as cool as it is in January. Even January, last time we were able to run the marathon weekend, they had to shorten the marathon course because it was so hot that the runners it wasn't safe to run. And so it's a really real fear that even Run Disney sort of leadership has. That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous. But you would know better than me, is the weather pretty cooperative in November, or does it get pretty hot out?
Typically, Wine and Dine will still be warmer. I don't think I've had a Wine and Dine that's been quite as extreme as, say, Marathon was last year. But you're also not usually going to get the option of sometimes being freezing weather. Typically, you're kind of right before that. Usually, though, your chances of rain for that weekend are pretty low, save that last year they did it at night and that big storm came through.
Yeah, which, afternoon thunderstorms are an everyday occurrence in Florida in the summer. And it's just too hot. So it makes sense that they just don't even think about running during those times. But have you ever run Star Wars when it was Star Wars?
Yeah, I was perfect in it until they killed it off. So that was sad. But yeah, sad. That weekend tended to run pretty hot, pretty consistently.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I bet that weekend is pretty warm.
Before we talk about the registration for Wine and Dine, what was kind of the reaction of the Run Disney community when these in-person races came back and they announced it happening so quickly?
I mean, I think mostly just excited. I mean, this was the announcement that we were hoping and waiting for. All the races coming back, everything in person, and they still kept the virtual option. So really, you can't be too upset about it. It's kind of best of both worlds there. But yeah, I think everyone's just excited to get back out there. I know we are.
Let's talk about registration for Wine and Dine. There was a lot of kind of trepidation the night before, on Facebook, some of the communities, the Run Disney community Facebook groups that I'm part of, as far as being able to get a slot. What was it like registering for it this year? Did anything sell out right away? And kind of what was your experience?
We were definitely a little bit worried, especially kind of coming up to that week before. And I think the general vibe was everyone was like, oh, this is going to sell out right away. You have to be ready. You have to be there. And it ended up being kind of the opposite. So the 10K itself did sell out probably about 2 to 3 hours after registration opened. However, as of now, which is 2 days later or 1 day later, the 5K is still open, the half is still open, and the 2-course challenge is still open.
And Chris, you were surprised about that the 5K didn't sell out, right?
Yeah, because every year the 5K goes the fastest. And one of the reasons why I think it goes so fast is because it's the most accessible race. They don't even ask for a proof of time on that race. It's just sort of like run it. The 5K and the 10K both sell out almost instantly. It seems like, at least they have in the past. And again, I think it's because a 3-mile and a 6-mile race is just more accessible. So the 10K is sold out from what I understand, right, Lake? So
Yep.
it's really just, for whatever reason, the 5K is a holdout this year in terms of selling out. And yeah, I'm not sure why. It surprises me.
Well, let me jump on this topic before we before it slips my mind. They did make some changes too, or did they actually make these changes, like as far as timing goes for, I know coming up for marathon weekend for running the halves, was it the same for Wine and Dine as far as placement in the corral? Like you needed under 2 hours in that half to possibly get a corral placement?
Yes, the proof of time did change.
My understanding is that it changed to 2 hours. Anything, you don't have to give a proof of time for anything past 2 hours, which really shocked a lot of people and probably disappointed some people, because I think you used to be able to give a proof of time up to 2 hours and 30 minutes, or is it 2 hours and 45 even?
It was 2:45. I think it was last year. It went down to 2:30, and now they have cut it off to 2 hours. Some speculation with that is that they're just cutting down what corrals are going to have those proof of time starts. So potentially probably only like A, B, and C. And some of that may have to do with the Club Run Disney having their preferred corral. We'll probably see that go in right after kind of these earlier proof of times now.
And for those of you who don't know, Club Run Disney is sort of like, I don't really know what the tangible benefits are beyond, at the highest level, you get a jacket that's kind of cool, like a member's jacket, and you get advanced corral placement, and you also get guaranteed entry in half marathon or above distances for every race weekend. So if you were like Lake and you did all of these races and you lived close enough to do them all, I could see there maybe being a benefit, but it seems like an awfully expensive upcharge that most people probably wouldn't be able to even make use of all the benefits. But I don't know. That's my thought.
You pretty much nailed it on the head there with what you get with it. There are 2 different levels. I don't quite remember the difference. They are very expensive. I believe the highest one is like well over $300. One other perk you do get with it is there's some sort of like pre-packet pickup, like lounge and pre-shopping experience you get before the actual expo opens. But other than that, I mean, we said it was very expensive. And also you cannot currently buy it if that's something that you were looking for. They are not actively selling it at the time.
And I think you get real cheese when you finish the race rather than the fake cheese if you're a Club Disney member.
People would revolt.
Well, any thoughts as to, or have you heard anything as far as numbers of people that they are allowing into these races? Obviously, it didn't sell out. I think we speculated. I've seen some speculation about that. We'll talk about that in just a second. But have you heard anything as far as like number wise?
They have not said anything about the numbers. They do currently have a page on the Run Disney website kind of saying this is what our COVID precautions are going to be. That page currently basically just says, hey, there might be some changes to things like character interactions and whatnot, which is to be expected because they're not currently doing character meet and greets the way they would before. So you may see some sort of distanced exchange, which I think would still be okay for Run Disney. Otherwise, the page basically just says check back. As of now, especially with all these events still being open and available to register for, I'm not seeing a huge reason why we wouldn't expect similar numbers currently.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting because right now in California and Disney World, it's not really COVID protocols that are causing them to have to like limit capacity to spaces and places. It's staffing. They don't have enough people to open every location and run every location at full capacity. And so I would be surprised if it was crowd levels that would cause them to not max out capacity for the Run Disney events. In my mind, the thing that would cause that is maybe projections for how many cast members it takes and what the infrastructure can handle right now, given all hands are on deck for the 50th.
So some speculations as to why Wine and Dine didn't sell out right away. I saw a pretty good post, but what are you kind of hearing from the running community?
I mean, that first big reason we talked about, rooms are pretty scarce right now. I haven't looked at anything off property just because that's not usually my vibe. If you can't get a room and you're someone who's set on staying on property, that's going to be kind of a big killer for you. Two, a lot of us weren't expecting Wine and Dine to happen or be in person. So this registration was really kind of sprung on us. If you weren't ready for that, there's probably a lot of people who just said, no, I'll pass. And again, we're talking about potentially not having any sort of crowd limitations right now. If that's true, there may be a lot of people who may just not be comfortable with the masses that is Run Disney.
I can totally see that for all those different reasons, happening so quickly, being able to pivot, make those reservations down to Walt Disney World and the comfortable part of it. Now, I know you've run some races in the last couple of months. What's been different about running the races after I should say after the pandemic, but within the pandemic, wherever we are in this pandemic? What's been your experience as far as how they handled those races? Anything different or what changed?
It really varies race by race. Some of the more like larger road running events are, trying to space people out, doing different like rolling start times. I've seen a lot of races where you register for a different start time and there's just different like 10-minute blocks. I know I did a local trail race that I actually thought had a good amount of people, and their COVID precautions were, hey, we're outside, so it's okay. That was a little bit weird because that was still kind of in the midst of things. So it really does vary depending on the size of the race and even who is putting on the race.
And Chris, have they started running any races yet down in California? I know that in Oregon, they're just getting ready to start. I think next month or this month, or July, they've got a race that's actually going to go, and they're going to run the Hood to Coast, which is a famous kind of team run, sort of like Ragnar up here. Anything down in California yet?
So the LA Marathon, which is normally in the spring, pivoted to November of this year. That would probably be the most famous race in LA. It starts up at Dodger Stadium and you run all the way from Dodger Stadium to the ocean, which is kind of iconic. In terms of other races that I know about, in July, which is not a great month to run a race, but in July, they're doing the San Diego Half Marathon, which is also typically held in the spring. So what's happened here is a lot of races that have put delayed start times are still trying to get their 2021 race in this year, just pushing it back to when COVID restrictions would be lighter. And then I think the plan would be to resume their normal schedule for 2022, which means the LA Marathon would be happening twice in like a 6-month period, which is kind of interesting.
Any advice, like, kind of looking forward to registering for Marathon weekend that we should throw out?
I mean, we were definitely for Wine and Dine, all hands on deck, all the computers open, ready at 10 o'clock. But I will say registration, it went smoothly for us. I definitely could see Marathon weekend being a little bit busier, potentially some faster sellouts. But the entire process is pretty much exactly the same. So if you're familiar with signing up for the events and you know what you're doing, you know how to navigate through the website, just do what you usually do. Stay calm. It'll be okay.
For people that are going to be out on the course for Wine and Dine, like where can they find you? Which races are you guys running?
For Wine and Dine, we signed up for the 2-course challenge, and then about 5 minutes later decided it would also be cool if we ran the very first race back, and we went back and also signed up for the 5K. So we're going to be doing the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon.
You're just doing a 3-course meal, but there's no acknowledgement and a medal for a 3-course meal.
I know. Usually I'm not like, oh, got to do the 5K and the challenge. Usually I'll just do the challenge and be happy with it. Just because
why not? It's historic.
We thought it would just be cool to be part of that like first race back.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be cool. Also, interestingly enough, they have gone apparently with villains again as a theme for Wine and Dine this time. At least all of the sort of like promo images have sort of like a Halloween spooky font with like wickedly delicious or something like that as their tagline. So I think it's safe to assume that the medals will be villain themed again this year, which actually kind of makes sense. I feel like Disney villains are very popular amongst fans.
Yeah, not my favorite theme, I'm not going to lie. The other weird thing with it was obviously the last year was supposed to be the villains theme, and they made that virtual. And all they did was they kept the same exact villains for the races, and they just switched what races they were themed for. They didn't even do like different villains, which kind of irks me. I don't know. We're not really pro team villain theme. I kind of liked the randomness of the different Wine and Dine themes.
Yeah, maybe in their mind, it's like, we never even got to try the villains in person. So let's do a year of villains in person and see how it goes. And then if it's popular, we'll keep it. The nice thing about Wine and Dine is they could just choose whatever it is that they want to choose in terms of, having different random themes.
I think that kind of leads into that springtime race too, where they could kind of opens them up to do whatever they want to do. But you're right, with Wine and Dine, they've always been able to do that as well. So I feel bad for the people that are losing the Star Wars race.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was not the most popular of the Run Disney events. I loved it. I would have been thrilled to see that come back as well. Something that is interesting about the springtime surprise is that they do kind of hint at the possibility of different distances being involved in it. I don't know how true that's going to hold just because of how rinse and repeat doing the 5K, 10K half is for them. But it would be kind of cool to see some unique themes with some maybe 15Ks or 10 milers like the old Tower of Terror race was. So we'll see.
That could be fun to mix it up in that way. I also anticipate we'll get like a Pixar theme. We'll probably get Marvel, though Marvel, I think, is limited, right, on their contracts for east of the Mississippi versus west of the Mississippi. So, I don't know that the Guardians of the Galaxy could carry an entire race as a theme, but I anticipate the springtime surprise to be a lot of their like IP. And it'll be just, random assortments of IP from year to year. Though it does make you wonder if it's possible to get perfect in that race. If they're changing the theme every year, but you still sign up for whatever the challenge that is that they do every year, assuming, you would be able to like get perfect by doing that exact thing every year, even though it's a different theme. But haven't heard much talk about that.
I know people have emailed them asking about it because a lot of people who were perfecting Star Wars were kind of peeved because they said like, no, you're no longer perfect for this weekend. This is a new series. I'm sure we'll see like in the FAQs or something eventually what they're going to do to handle that, whether they just try to get rid of it completely for that weekend or they just make it you have to run whatever insane longest distance it is to keep perfect.
Well, I guess as we finish up today, congratulations to you and Katie for getting into the first race coming back and then those races as well for Wine and Dine. Before we finish up, why don't you go over the dates, Lake, as to when the next races are going to be that they've announced so far?
Yeah, so as we said, Wine and Dine, November 4th through the 7th. Registration is already open. Marathon weekend, January 5th to the 9th. And in-person races open to general public July 27th. Virtual opens 3 days after that, July 30th. And the Club Run Disney Gold and Platinum, it opens a week earlier, which is July 20th. Princess Weekend is happening February 24th to the 27th. And registration for Gold and Platinum Run Disney Club, whatever, is August 27th. General registration for in-person, August 24th. And general registration for virtual is August 27th. One thing that is also different about Springtime Surprise is the weekend has currently changed. It is basically earlier in the month now. It is March 31st to April 3rd. And there is no registration dates currently, but we will find out probably that soon, along with what the distance and themes will be.
Sounds fun. They're going to have to get those dates out sooner rather than later, I agree, because it's going to be probably a deciding factor for when people also plan their trip to see all the stuff they're doing for the 50th. I secretly hope to go to the 50th, obviously in January, but I want to go again later because I think they're going to open Tron and Guardians of the Galaxy later in the 50th. So maybe I will be there at the springtime surprise, weathering the possible heat strokes. And hopefully by spring break, they'll have opened Tron or Guardians, because I'm very excited about those two new rides.
As we get out of here, Chris, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just going to continue to say, even if you feel like this isn't something that you normally would do, they have a really great training plan that sort of starts you at a walking, primarily walking pace. There's someone named Jeff Galloway that Disney uses for their training plans. And if you've never run before, he's really great because his plan literally starts at like 10 seconds of running and then 2 minutes of walking or something like that. So it's very accessible, and it could definitely get you up to 5K or 10K shape pretty easily. So yeah, if it's something you ever even just thought, I'd kind of like to try or check it off on my bucket list, I think Disney is one of the best places to start there.
I agree with everything that Chris said. It is a great entry into running with all the different programs and various distances they have. And I am just so excited to be able to see everyone that I was supposed to see at all these races in past years and have not seen in several years now, including you guys and all of my other different friends that I've made through doing all of these events throughout the years.
Well, we definitely look forward to catching up with you this January for Marathon Weekend as well. Like, how can people follow you guys, you and Katie over at MouseGen? And I just want to say once again, thank you so much for all you and Katie do for our show and being our Run Disney experts, and also all the cruise line content that you put out there on your channel. And when we get to talk about cruise line with you as well.
Yeah, we're excited to be able to talk cruises again, hopefully soon. But you can find us on YouTube at MouseGen. That's MOUSEGEN, no spaces or anything. And then you can also follow us on Instagram at mouse.gen, same spelling. And those are probably the two places we are most active currently. Mostly just the YouTube content is what we focus on.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Lake, for coming back on with us. We do appreciate it. And we wish you all the best in your races in November for Wine and Dine.
Thanks again for having me.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Lake for coming on and helping us talk a little Run Disney. It's always good to connect with him. And you can follow Lake and Katie over on their YouTube channel, MouseGen. Once again, that's MOUSEGEN. They've got a lot of fun Disney Cruise Line videos, Run Disney videos, and also some park videos as well. Well, as this episode comes out, there are still slots available in Wine and Dine Weekend if you want to run either the half marathon or the Disney 2-course challenge. You can go over to rundisney.com and find out all the information there. And as a reminder, the Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend, which will be happening in January of 2022, registration opens next week. General registration opens up on July 27th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And we want to wish everybody who wants to register for that weekend just the best of luck getting the races you're hoping to run in. You can hopefully find Anawake and I, if we get into the race, running the half marathon next January, so look for us there. Well, our family's heading out on a vacation this next week, so we are going to have a week off of podcasts here at the DCL Podcast. So look for us to come back the first week of August. We've got a fun Aulani trip report coming up, and we also have another trip report on the beautiful Celebrity Edge. A good friend of the show, Donna, was able to sail on it, and we had a lot of fun talking to her, and we'll be bringing that to you just as soon as we can in August. Well, between now and our next show, if you and your family are heading out on a vacation, hopefully you're done with those staycations. On behalf of all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy your time with each other, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.